I don't know why I agreed to babysit that night. Maybe I needed the extra cash, or maybe I was just bored. But if I had known how it would unfold, I would have stayed home. You hear people talk about haunted houses, creepy kids, and cursed dolls all the time. It's the stuff of urban legends, campfire tales told to give you a cheap scare. I never believed any of it. Not really. But that night, in that house, with that doll, I felt something I'd never felt before: pure, bone chilling fear. It all started innocently enough. I'd been babysitting for this family for a few weeks. Nothing strange ever happened. The house was old, yeah, but cozy in that charming, antique sort of way. The parents were nice, the little girl was sweet, and everything seemed normal. At least, until that evening. I was sitting on the couch, keeping an eye on the little girl while she played quietly with her toys. Nothing unusual. She was always well behaved, never caused any trouble. But then, out of nowhere, she said something that made my skin prickle. "You know my doll moves when we play hide and seek, right?" she said. Her voice so matter of fact it was like she was telling me the sky was blue. I looked over at her, half expecting her to laugh or say she was kidding, but she didn't. She just kept playing with her toys, not even bothering to look up at me. "What?" I asked, my heart doing a weird little flip in my chest. "What do you mean it moves?" She pointed to this old porcelain doll sitting on a shelf across the room. I hadn't even noticed it before, but now that I did, I wished I hadn't. It was one of those creepy vintage dolls with glassy, dead eyes that seemed to follow you no matter where you stood. "When we play hide and seek," she said again, like it was the most normal thing in the world, "it moves." I laughed, but it came out hollow. My mind was racing, trying to decide if she was just messing with me or if there was something more to it. But the way she said it, with such casual certainty, made me uneasy. I pulled out my phone and started recording, partly because I thought it'd be funny, but mostly because I wanted some kind of proof if things got weird. "So, when you play hide and seek, the doll moves? By itself?" I asked, aiming my camera at the doll. It sat there, unmoving, those blank eyes staring straight ahead. "Yeah," she replied, still not looking at me, "but only if you play with it." I hesitated for a second, my brain screaming at me to stop, to just let it go. But curiosity got the better of me. "All right," I said, my voice shaky, "let's play hide and seek." I was trying to convince myself that nothing would happen. It was just a doll. A stupid, old, probably dusty doll. But as we started the game, I couldn't stop glancing at it. Every time I looked over, I half expected it to have moved, to be in a different position, but it wasn't. It just sat there, lifeless. My heart started to slow down, and I felt silly for even entertaining the idea that it might be haunted. The game went on, and nothing happened. No creepy doll movement, no ghostly whispers, nothing. I started to relax, laughing at myself for getting so worked up over a little kid's imagination. But just as I was about to call it a night, something changed. The dog, who had been lazily lying on the floor, suddenly stood up, its hackles raised. It stared at the doll with this strange intensity, like it was seeing something I couldn't. My pulse quickened again, the unease returning with full force. The dog didn't move closer. It just stood there, growling softly under its breath, its eyes locked on the doll. "What's wrong, boy?" I asked, but my voice came out barely above a whisper. The dog didn't respond. It just kept staring, not daring to move. I felt that same heavy dread settle over me again, like an invisible weight pressing down on my chest. I told myself it was nothing, just the dog being weird. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. Something was very wrong. I put the girl to bed, trying to shake off the uneasy feeling gnawing at the edges of my mind. She went to sleep without any fuss, but I couldn't stop thinking about the doll. I went back to the living room, trying to convince myself that everything was fine. I sat down on the couch, scrolling through my phone, but I couldn't focus. My eyes kept drifting over to where the doll sat, untouched, its unblinking eyes staring right at me. After a while, I must have dozed off, because the next thing I knew, I was jolted awake by a sound. This faint mechanical whirring like a toy turning on by itself. My heart leapt into my throat, and I sat up, my eyes darting around the room. Everything was still, but then I heard it again, coming from the corner of the room where the doll was. I grabbed my phone and started recording again, my hands shaking as I got up to investigate. The whirring sound grew louder as I approached the doll. One of the girl's toys, a little robot or something, was blinking and moving on its own. I knew for a fact that it had been off when I left the room earlier. But now, there it was, buzzing and moving like it had a mind of its own. And right next to it was the doll. At first, the doll seemed like it hadn't moved. But then, as I stood there, my phone shaking in my hand, I saw it. The doll's head, it started to lift. Slowly, so slowly, it raised its head, its lifeless eyes fixing on me. I could barely breathe. I watched, paralyzed, as the doll's head tilted up, its glassy gaze locking onto mine. It was like it was looking at me, seeing me. Then, just as suddenly as it had moved, the doll's head dropped back down, its body collapsing in on itself like nothing had happened. I didn't wait to see if it would move again. I bolted out of that house so fast, I didn't even stop to grab my jacket. My heart was pounding in my chest, my breath coming in ragged gasps as I fumbled with the door, desperate to get out. I didn't care if I looked crazy. I didn't care about anything except getting as far away from that doll as possible. I never went back to that house. I couldn't. Even now, I still can't explain what I saw. Maybe it was my imagination. Maybe it was just a trick of the light. Or maybe there was something in that doll. Something dark. Something that shouldn't have been there. I don't know. But I do know one thing. Whatever happened that night, I'll never forget it.